Megan, and I live in San Francisco. I've lived here since 1992, more or less. I have a teenage son, and I'm a yoga teacher and a bookkeeper, a book reader, and a bookkeeper. I've been a bike messenger, bartender, waitress, all sorts of crazy things. I have a master's degree in history. I think that's all about me.
How long have you been working in the coat check?
I've been in the coat check probably 5 years. I'm at Public Works, which is luckily near where I live, and it's electronic music mostly. Sometimes we have live bands. I ended up there because I'm a single mom and I needed to make more money on flexible hours because yoga teachers don't make very much money. And a friend of mine was part of that club opening, and there was one night where they needed someone to come down and work the door. And so I ran down there and worked the door, and they liked me, and then they shoved me in the coat check, shut the door. They were like, "You can't come out, never, not even to pee." And,
isn't that the life? I know.
Like, sometimes I'm like, I could just shut the door and close that top part and pee in a bottle.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I ended up in the coat check, and at first I was happy with it, but then I realized that the coat check person is the very last person, aside from the person who comes to clean the club, to leave.
Yeah.
And I'm not made for, because it's a dance club, sometimes the night's not over until like 6 a.m. And so I was just like, I hate this job. But then I grew to like.
That's the only place that you're doing coat check right now?
Regular, yeah. Sometimes I'll do it like, a friend of mine used to have these great soul parties over at the Faidherbe Club, and we would make a coat check kind of on the dance floor, and then those were my favorite because it's like you're right in the middle of the party,
right,
and checking the coats. But most of the time I'm at Public Works.
Nice. Pre-ritual before you do coat check, do you have one?
You mean like before I go into the coat check?
Or do you have like, or maybe even a prep before you go to work? You know that you're doing coat check that night. What goes through your mind?
Usually I've had a work day already, so I usually get my kid dinner, send him to his dad's, and then drink about 5 cups of tea to guarantee I'll have to pee, but that I'll also be awake.
Right.
Then I make sure even if I think it's going to be a busy night, I pick my reading material.
Okay.
And make sure my Kindle is charged because the coat check is dark.
Yes.
And I usually only ever wear the same thing, so I don't really think about that much. And that's about it.
Let's talk about people. What are your thoughts on people in the coat check? Do you find, over your years of experience working the coat check, that people are using it, they don't use it, or they don't know how to use it?
All of the above. I think most people, I would say a lot of people use it, especially at the dance club because they're moving around more. Like if you're out at, if you're out at more of a rock show, a lot of times you're stationary, so your stuff can stay with you. But at the dance club, I find that they're more apt to come and do it. Plus, they're wearing these little outfits. Right. So they want to do that. Do they know how to use the coat check? That's a whole nother topic of, I'm not sure that they know how to use the coat check.
Have you been, I guess, in the education part, do you feel that the younger people today, like, are kind of not connecting with, like, maybe, like, a crowd that has just come before them into the party scene? Like, do you feel that older people are not kind of taking them by the reins and showing them how to tip and use the bar and the coat check?
I think it's been very interesting. Like at the dance club, it's interesting. Like the different parties I've worked, I find it's more uniform as to what happens, that people's politeness levels and their knowledge of I pay for the coat check, and then I would tip the coat check worker because that person is watching my coat and my stuff, which is a whole nother thing. I have stuff. At the dance club, people are often surprised that they need to pay for the service or that they need to tip, and we get a lot of foreigners who like to empty their change purse into the tip jar, and often it's not American money. And then the younger crowd, in the past 2 years, the really interesting thing is that they have a lot of money. They're tech workers, they're supporting tech workers, I don't know what they do, but they have pockets full of cash. And so sometimes surprisingly, they are over generous because they are flashy.
Wow. Okay.
So that's a very interesting thing because it's new to my experience.
Let's just talk about people then coming up to your coat check. What is your most ideal person coming to the coat check?
My ideal person, if there's no line, or even if there is a line, their coat is off their body.
Okay.
And their coat is in their hand. And the sleeves are not inside out. They're hanging out like a regular coat, like when you take it off. And they have their money out. And then when they come up, they give me their coat and they give me their money and they wait until they get a claim ticket. And then I take their coat and I put it away. And then they put money in the tip jar then, and they are polite. And they also don't plan on coming back and asking me for their chapstick or their phone or their condoms or whatever else might be in their coat. And then my favorite thing lately is that they take a picture of their coat check ticket. Some people are really crazy and they actually take a picture of their jacket as well. And those people, I love them. But the biggest thing that I love is if their coat is off their person already.
Right. Yeah, that makes it a lot easier. Okay, so then I'm sure your spidey sense in coat check has developed. How do you know that someone is coming up to you and, you know, your ears perk up and you're like, hot mess alert? What is a dead giveaway for that?
There's so many. One of them is that they're already slurring and they're talking on their phone or they're leaning on the wall. That's one problem. The other is that their coat is still on their body and they don't have any money out and they're just standing there at the coat check window looking at me. Then I think, well, maybe you're gonna check your coat.
Right.
And then if they then pay me with crumpled up money that I have to uncrumple, and then I have to chase them down with their ticket. All of those are signs that I know I better remember them and their coat because later they're not going to have their ticket. And at the dance club, because often lots of drugs are involved, or I don't know if I can say that out loud.
No, yeah, totally.
People, they're really needy in terms of guidance.
Yes.
So sometimes it's hard to get their coat from them because they're really into feeling their coats and things like that. So sometimes there's just all sorts of navigation that happens with that. The other thing that, you know, I find is a hot mess alert is, you know how, you know, it's per coat.
Yes.
And I'm kind. We live in San Francisco, and nobody leaves with one coat.
Right.
So if you're wearing your hoodie and your jacket, and you give them to me, and they belong to you, then I would just charge you for the one item. But if you're wearing 7 people's coats, and then you're this tiny person, and you take off all these 7 coats, and you hand them to me, they're like they're one coat, I'm going to know that you're someone I'm going to have to deal with, and that all those people are going to come separately for their coats, and I'm going to undo them all, and you're going to have a fit because I now charge you for 7 coats that you were wearing all as one. So that's also another hot mess thing. I have others. But
oh yeah, so yeah, that leads me to the next one. I mean, you're one of, like, give me Megan's top 3 pet peeves, just right off the top.
The multi-coat wearer is definitely a pet peeve of mine. I don't have any pockets and I'm not wearing a coat. Can you check my stuff here? Yeah. That's also a little problematic. Not a fan of that. The taking everything out of the pockets and putting it into the pocket of the coat, and then knowing that that person is going to return again and again and again to retrieve things from their pockets. That not tipping is a really big pet peeve of mine, and one of the ones that drives me batty is, I don't know why people do this, but they come to the coat check to fart. Do you have that experience?
Oh my god.
Like, they come over because where I am in the club.
Are you near the bathroom?
No, we're just kind of in a corner. Okay. And so people come over and they just fart over there, and that's just totally and completely
So in terms of pieces, what's the oddest piece of clothing or non-clothing you've ever encountered to be checked?
Quite a few different things. At Public Works, we do a lot of Burning Man parties. We also do the Folsom Street Fair after party, and we do a lot of parties during Pride Week. So I have had vibrators and dildos checked, had entire piece of clothing except for one woolly sock that the guy put over his penis. Woolly sock. It was really weird. I've had coffee makers, but the one that was the craziest one to me, and I've had like people's dinners, you know, and stuff like that, but these girls came into Pride a few years ago, and they had obviously gone to Rainbow before, and they'd bought groceries, like not like snacks for the club or anything, but like kale, perishables, and I was like, you're checking your groceries, these two heavy bags, and I was looking at them thinking, okay, not only are these your groceries, but in here is probably like your lip gloss and your whatever, and I'm going to take them. And I took them and I checked them, and I was in and out of those bags like all night long, back and forth with them and whatever. And by the end of the night, I gave them back their bags, and the girl was like, I'm a physical therapist, let me work on what we've done to your wrists. And so she gave me a wrist massage, which was nice. And one time a girl came to a costume party, and she had brought a machete, and that was checked in the coat check. So that was probably the most what were you thinking thing ever. It was Halloween, and she came in as a ninja with a machete, and she had to be escorted in and out of the club and with her machete. So I was holding the machete in the coat check. But I think the grossest thing I ever checked was this guy came in, and he was wearing one of those like alpaca wool gigantic sweater things that had probably never been washed ever, and it was you could tell because it wasn't white, it was like dirty color, and he came in, and I was like, that's not coming in here, because I could smell it. I was like, no, I'm trapped in here. And he looked at me, and he would start to take it off, and I was like making that face like, you're not really gonna do that. And he handed it to me, and he was like, I'm really sorry. And I was just like, oh. So that was one of those things like was a gag reef, like that wool, that was gross. Like the vibrators and things like that, like we have when we do parties like that, when people are going to check things like that, or all their clothes, we have garbage bags, and we just hold them out.
Oh, nice. And just wrap them up.
And they wrap them up.
Styles of coats. What's coming in?
A lot of little black leather. Sometimes with these new coats, it's hard to tell the top from the bottom, because like I've found that the bottom and the top are sort of the same size, and that gets confusing. But lots of little black leather things, and probably the biggest thing I've seen are they look like garbage bags made into coats. Those really thin, like mini poofies,
like these Uniqlo, those Japanese. I get those too.
They're just so weird because they're so light. And then because we do a lot of Burning Man parties, there are an excessive amount of really long faux heavy fur things that look like, when you work one of those parties, if you look at the coat check, it looks like Sesame Street, or like the Muppets have taken over. They're just like everywhere. One of my favorite parties to work is Barracuda, and that is just a study in very large hoodies.
Let's talk about tipping, because tipping is a big component of the coat check.
When people ask me that, I usually smile at them and say, before guarantees your coat, and after is when you get it. So you can do it both. You can do it once, but you should do it.
Let's talk about some like stories that you have. Gross stuff, fun stuff, upsetting stuff.
I think one that kind of sums up what happens in the coat check is I was at work just, I think last weekend. It was a pretty diverse crowd, young and old, and they were all pretty nice. And, you know, people lose their tickets. And usually the policy is you wait until the end of the night, and then whatever coat is left is usually the lost ticket coat. But if there's time, you know, you go and you look through the tickets. But then there has to be something usually in a pocket or something like that, that identifies the coat as this person, because you've checked it in the coat check, and obviously the point of the coat check is that you're keeping the coat safe, and we are not going to give your coat to some random person who's like, that's my coat, which people tend to get really mad about, but that's why you checked your coat. So this guy comes in and he's lost his ticket, and usually when that happens, I'm like, can you stand here for me and take your hands and put them in all your pockets and use your eyes when you pull things out and look at the things in your pockets. And I give them very specific directions, which may sound really silly here, but people are pretty amazing. They come up and they're like, I lost my ticket, and you say, did you look? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, did you look? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, look. And then they look, and they miraculously, there's their ticket. And this guy looked everywhere, pulled his pockets out, used his eyes, you know, didn't find his ticket. So I was like, well, what does your coat look like? And he was like, well, it's green, woolly, and there's pockets full of condoms. And I was just like, okay. And the guy behind him's like, everybody has pocket full of condoms. I'm like, everybody has pockets full of condoms? Like, what is this? This is like, this isn't a pickup party. I mean, it was Valentine's Day weekend, but, you know, I was like, okay. So I'm looking through all the coats, and finally I find one that's big and green and woolly, and I stick my hand in the pocket, and there is a pocket full of condoms. And this guy is like 22 years old, looks like totally like geeky, mild-mannered guy. I'm like, what is he doing with like a pocket full of condoms? So I look in, and because the guy behind him was like, everybody has a pocket full of condoms, I was like, well, what brand are your condoms? And there's a line in the coat check, so they're all looking at him. He's like, one brand in there is Silk. And I go through, and I'm like, okay. So then I gave him back his coat and his pocket full of condoms. The other story I will tell you is one of those ones that I feel like only people who work in the coat check understand, and that I do think the whole world needs to understand the why. So this girl has lost her ticket, and she has a jacket, and it's black, and she's drunk, and she's in tight, and she says, I've lost my ticket, what does your coat look like? It's black. There's a lot of black coats. Can you help me with more information about what your coat looks like? Tears fall down her face. I need my coat, I have to go home. I'm like, I would love to help you find your coat, but you need to give me more information about your coat for me to be able to find it, because I want to come in and find it. You can't come in and find it, because if you come back here, the coats aren't safe, because that's why you're paying me and tipping me to watch your coats, so that random people can't come and hang out with your coats, just me. Which none of made sense to her. So she's just like, it's a black coat, it's a black coat. And I was like, okay, just go over there. So, she comes back. I'm like, I can't find your just black coat until the end of the night when I have less black coats. Can you tell me anything more about your coat? Because she's losing her shit now. She's like, I'm a person. You're not treating me like a person. And I was like, I'm totally treating you like a person. I'm trying to find your coat, but it's just black, and I have a line of people. I'm busy, that coat check holds like 300 some odd. I mean, it's a lot of coats. Right, yes. So if that coat check is full and there's a line of people, I can't find your black coat. So finally I get her to security, and she's out there yelling at them and crying and everything. And finally she comes back, and she's able to give me a little more information. It's a vintage black coat with a strange floppy collar hood. Long, short, it's long, and it's old. I'm like, okay, that helps. So I go through the coats, because she is a mess and she's crying, and I find a coat that probably is her coat. And you can always kind of tell. You're like, that's the coat. So I get it out, and I'm like, is there anything in your pockets? She's like, there's nothing in my pockets. I'm like, you have to help me. I want to give you your coat, but you have to help me here in identifying your coat, because I'm guessing this is your coat and you're telling me this is your coat, but you're in hysterics and this might not be your coat. So she then proceeds to cry and cry and cry and tell me I'm treating her like she's not a human being. And finally I just grabbed her face and I was like, I need you to stop talking and to listen to me so I can give you your coat. Can you do that? And she's like, yeah. So every time I open my mouth, it's just like having a kid, she starts talking. And I was like, please help me help you. Help me help you. Stop talking. So then finally I yelled at her. I was like, stop fucking talking! I want to give you your goddamn coat. She's like, you're not treating me like a person. I was like, I'm treating you like a person. I'm just so aggravated. And so finally I took her and I was like, I gave her the whole lowdown. I was like, do you see all the coats? How many of them are black? You lost your ticket. It's not my fault you lost your ticket. I'm being nice to you and finding your coat that you lost the ticket for by this paltry information that you're giving me about your black coat. And I found your coat, and all I'm asking you to do is identify it enough for me to feel safe giving it to you in case it's not your coat. You're not treating me like a person! I was like, just take the coat. Just take the coat. And then she burst into tears and she left. But I feel like that stuff happens all the time because people lose their ticket and then they blame you for not giving them your coat. And they're all up in arms. They've got managers and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, you're responsible for one little ticket. Like, take a picture of it. These are the rules of the coat check. Why does the coat check have so many rules? To protect it from people like you. My advice for using the coat check is to always have some little thing in your pocket that identifies it as your coat. Just can be like you had a pack of Orbit gum or something like that. And when you get in the coat check line, just like if you're waiting in line to buy tickets or something like that, you should be ready. So your coat should be off your person. Have your money ready. You should tip. But you should also, if you're checking more than one coat, if you do not plan on leaving with the person who you're checking the coat with, or your relationship is a little rocky, you shouldn't check your coats together on one ticket. And my other thing of advice that really isn't about the coat check, but is just about working in late night nightlife, is that really not much good happens between 2 and 6 a.m. So if you haven't found the person that you are going to go home with by like 2, you should just not go home with anybody except for your roommate.
Wow, okay.
Because the things that I see happening sometimes, I'm like, is it okay to intervene there? Because that's probably unsavory in the morning.
I want to thank you so much.
Thank you.